purify ourselves after hearing the sound vibration. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagadamahyam Dadati Svadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shcha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everybody. So I guess for the last number of weeks we've been discussing the different chapters of Bhagavad Gita. I'm going through, I guess, summarizing. So now this is the 4th week, I reckon, we've been doing this. So we're going to talk about Chapter 4. Little bit of background. The Bhagavad Gita is basically it's a guidebook for how to live in this world. So just like if you buy, for instance, a piece of, well, let's say I bought this watch. Recently I bought this watch, actually. I bought this watch, and in the box with this watch, there was the watch, and there was some packaging, and there was also an instruction manual. Because the watch is, of course, watches in and of themselves are relatively intuitive. It's easy to use a watch. But there are certain things like, for instance, how to adjust the hands, or how to take out and put in the strap, or how to change the battery, things like that, that are less intuitive. So when you look at the watch, you can see it, okay, whatever, you put it on the wrist, and this is the minutes, this is the hours, this is the seconds. Okay, it's pretty intuitive. But without the instruction manual, you won't know how to do all these different things, like change the hands, take out the strap, change the battery, all these different things. So in the same way, the material world, the world that we see around us, is real. It's something that we are really experiencing. There is really us, and we are really experiencing the world. And most people, the vast majority of people, Krishna says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatiti siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattataha. Krishna says that out of many thousands of men, one may endeavor for some kind of spiritual liberation. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatiti siddhaye, for some kind of perfection. Siddha means perfection. So, the vast majority of people are, operating on the basis of what's referred to within the Vedic literatures as pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means whatever I see, whatever I hear, whatever I smell, whatever I touch, whatever I taste, that is reality. And everything else, I can't confirm whether it's reality or whether it's not reality. So basically, most people, the vast majority of people, say there is nothing beyond that. There's nothing beyond what I see, there's nothing beyond what I hear, what I smell, taste, touch, etc. However, Bhagavad Gita, and specifically actually this chapter of Bhagavad Gita, emphasizes the importance of something called Shabda. Shabda means sound. It means a sound vibration. It means that just like, for instance, behind those curtains, I cannot see right now what is happening behind those curtains. However, here's a better example. You all don't know what's going on behind those curtains right now. However, if I tell you, because I know what's going on behind those curtains right now, that Ananga Priya Mataji is dressing Radha Giridhari in their night outfit. Now, you know. You can't see it, you can't hear it, can't touch it, you can't taste it, you can't do anything, can't perceive it, with pratyaksha. But because you heard from a reliable source that is what is going on behind those curtains, now you know. Not just believe, actually. Now you know. It's actually knowledge. And so Krishna, the title of this knowledge, the English translation that Srila Prabhupada gives, is transcendental knowledge. In Sanskrit, this is called Divya Gyan. Divya Gyan means transcendental knowledge. I think anybody really who knows Indian languages, these are kind of basic terms. Of course, not every Indian language is fully Sanskrit-based, but these are simple kind of words. Divya Gyan. So, Krishna says, the first verse in the 4th chapter, Krishna says, Imam vivasvate yogam proktavana hamaviyam vivasvan manave praha manur Ikṣvāku bravit. He says, thousands, at this point he's spoken about karma yoga, he's spoken about general kind of spiritual topics and the especially topics about the body and the soul. In the first 2 chapters, I say 2 because the first chapter is really just backstory. The first chapter is really just summarizing the events leading up to the speaking of the Bhagavad Gita. And the actual teachings of the Bhagavad Gita begin in the 2nd chapter. So Krishna's now spoken about a number of different things. And he is now going to emphasize a very important point. And with this verse, Imam Vivasvate Yogam, he says, I, previously, thousands, millions of years ago, billions of years ago, he said, I instructed Vivasvan, the sun god. I instructed all of this knowledge to Vivasvan. And Vivasvan spoke it to Manu. Controversial figure nowadays, Manu. But yes, the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Vivasvan, then to Manu, and then Manu spoke it to his son Ikṣvāku. So and then Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshyo vedahu sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapaha. He says that the science, this knowledge which I've been speaking to and which I will continue to speak about, has been received through this disciplic succession for, since time immemorial, for a very, very long time. And he says, but now, due to the influence of time, this succession has been broken. So now I'm speaking to you again so that you not only can act on the basis of Bhagavad Gita in this situation, but so that the disciplic succession, the succession of Guru and Shishya, can be re-established. And this knowledge can continue to flow down. So this is a very important point, which I will expand on. Well, I guess I can talk about it now. One thing, you know what? I'll talk about it later. I'll give a little more of the flow first. Then Arjuna brings up this question. He says, this is the 4th text. He says, Aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha katham metad vijaniyam tvam ado proktavaniti. He says, you have been on this planet for, at this point, Krishna has been on the planet for around 100 years. At the time of the Bhagavad Gita, spoken, Krishna was about 100 years old. But he appeared as if he was around 16. This is Krishna. So, Arjun, being in a friendly mood with Krishna, asked him, he said, how is it possible that you spoke this knowledge to Vivasvan? And then that Vivasvan spoke it to Manu, and then Manu spoke it to Ikṣvāku. Excuse me, I have a little cold. But he said, how is that possible? Because Vivaswan is so old, and you are my friend. I've seen you, growing up and like this. It's not that, you're millions and millions of years old, right? And Krishna says, wrong. Actually, he says, both of us have been together many, many births. Not just one birth, not just this birth, not just two births, but actually we've had many, many births over and over and over again. And this is a very important point, that the soul is eternal. That these bodies that we possess now really are temporary, like prison outfits, really. The soul, Krishna says in the second chapter of Bhagavad-gītā, he says, Najayate mriyate vakadachan nayam bhutva bhavatavanam bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Arjuna is so concerned about all these people and killing them, and what's going to happen, if the women become unprotected, all their husbands are dead. What's going to happen? How is this dharmic? So what Krishna says is who's dying? Who's killing? He says the soul is never born, it never dies, it's everlasting, it never ever came into being, it's eternal. The soul is as eternal as Krishna, beginningless and endless. So Arjuna, being in a friendly mood with Krishna, was by Krishna's arrangement for the purpose of speaking the Bhagavad-gītā, he was put into some kind of illusion. Of course, Arjuna is a very elevated personality. So his so-called illusion is actually just for our benefit, actually. Krishna put him in this so-called confusion so that he could have an excuse to speak the Bhagavad-gītā actually to us, to everybody, not to Arjuna. Arjuna already, he's situated Nitya Siddha. He's ever eternally perfect. So this situation was brought about for our benefit. And so then Krishna says, the next three verses are very important verses. Krishna says, Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakatim swamadishtaya sambhavam yatma mayaya. He says, we've had many births, and I remember them, but you don't. And he said, although I'm unborn, and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I'm the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So the knowledge, this is the first of 3 verses in this chapter. Well, really actually a number of verses. Well, yeah, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 verses. This is the first of 4 verses, which very clearly delineate the essence of the transcendental knowledge, or the divya gyan, that Krishna is trying to communicate. So he's saying, I have given this knowledge from time immemorial, it's been passed down, and now I'm speaking it again to you. And what is that knowledge? That knowledge is that Krishna, by his own potency, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is Bhagavan. Bhagavan is a term everybody here is familiar with, I'm sure. Bhagavan means one who possesses opulence. Bhaga means opulences, and Van, of course, means one who possesses. So, Bhagavan means that Krishna possesses full control over everything. Full control over himself, full control over the universe, and full control over how he interacts with them. And all these different energies, he has full control over all of them. So, with this control, Krishna appears in every millennium in his original transcendental form, which is another point, that Krishna's form is transcendental. There's I think it's in the Padma Purana. I think maybe Padma Purana. But there's a verse in the Padma Purana which states that Krishna, that Bhagavan, he is not a yogi. Krishna, speaking specifically Krishna. Krishna is not a yogi. He's not a devata. He is Bhagavan. He is the Supreme Lord. And his form, mam samedho sti sambhava. It's not made up of meat and flesh. His rupa, his form is Satya. Satya rupo chito vibhu. Krishna or Achyuta, his form is Satya. Satya means, in this case, true or eternal. Krishna's form is eternal. It's not that there's a popular conception amongst those within or certain, Vedic philosophical schools that, yes, okay, we worship Krishna on the altar and we offer the arti very nicely and we sing all bhajans about Krishna and Krishna's Lila, but ultimately it's all just nothing. It's all just light, and the forms that Krishna takes are Maya. But this is not the fact whatsoever. And the entire Bhagavad Gita is the evidence for this. The entire Bhagavad Gita actually is the evidence for this. And especially these verses, and the 9th verse I will specifically speak about a little more. So then Krishna appears by his own potency. And why does he come? The next verse. Very famous verse. I'm sure everybody here knows this one. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharataha abhyutanam dharmasya tadatmanam srajamyaham. Krishna says that whenever, and then he says, paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. He says, millennium after millennium, I come whenever there is a decline in dharma and an increase in adharma. These things, Krishna comes to change. And you could say, well, why does Krishna change it? Why does Krishna come to change the fact that people are engaging in adharma, and why does Krishna want to establish dharma? Because you could say, well, a very popular Hindu conception is that Hindus were very tolerant, and we don't want to convert anybody or this or that, which, of course, we respect people's free will. However, the dharma which is given in the Bhagavad Gita, the dharma which is given in the Vedas, is extremely important for humankind. Why? Because that dharma, savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahaitika pratihata yayatma suprasidati. This is a verse in the first skanda of Srimad Bhagavatam that says that the supreme dharma is that by which people can attain love for Krishna, can attain love for God, and dedicate all their activities to God. Dharma svanashrita pumsam vishvaksenikatasyat notpadayed yadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam. And any dharma which doesn't engender this love for Krishna, this dedication, full dedication to Krishna, that dharma is shrama eva hi kevalam. It's a complete waste of time, actually. Because who are we? We are souls, spirit souls. And the function of the soul is not to be a man or a woman or a wife or a husband or a software engineer or a doctor or I don't know, airline pilot or this or that or the other thing. The dharma of the soul, the eternal dharma of the soul, is to be Krishna's eternal servant. There's a verse in Bengali from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, a very famous text within our sampradaya, that says, Jiber Shwarup hoy Krishner Nitya Das. That the eternal Svarup of the Jiva, the Svarup meaning, everybody knows what Svarup means. Sva means their own and Rup means form. So the eternal Svarup is, of the Jiva, of the soul, is to be Krishna's Nitya Das, to be Krishna's eternal servant. And there's a verse also in the Srimad Bhagavatam which states that mukti, that liberation, muktir hitvanyata rupam svarupena vyavastitihi. That real mukti, real liberation is to give up anyata rupa, to give up all these false forms and to accept our real form. Svarupena vyavastitihi, to become situated in our real form, which is as Krishna's servant. And when one does this, when one is situated as a servant of Krishna, then Krishna becomes obliged to that person, actually. There's a verse just, Ye yatha mam prapadyate tam stateva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushyav partha sarvashah. That, as Krishna says, as the souls reciprocate with me, as the souls approach me, he says, in that way I reciprocate with them. So if somebody wants to be indifferent for me, toward me, then let them be indifferent. Fine, I'll be indifferent toward them. I won't impede on their space. However, if one gives me their love, their dedication, then he says, I will become dedicated to that person. Krishna actually says, there's some verses in Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically in the 10th skanda, if you read in the past the Damodar Lila, you'll see especially one verse which says, Krishna, I'm forgetting the Sanskrit now. I'm forgetting the first line. Anyway, but it says that the specific feature, the specific amazing feature of this pastime, this Damodar Lila, is that Krishna, although he's in control, I want to remember the Sanskrit. I don't think I will. Although he's in control of the entire material world, the entire universe, the Bible says that not a blade of grass moves without the Lord's sanction. Of course, Bible's not really our Shastra, but anyway, it's nice. So Krishna's in control of the entire universe. Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam parvartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanta. Krishna says, from everything, well, actually a better verse would be, Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyite sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. He says, this whole creation is going on under my control, and it's being created and annihilated again and again. So although Krishna is in full control of himself, he's in full control of the entire material world, he becomes bound by his devotees' love. And this is seen in this Damodar Lila, where Krishna agrees to become bound by Mother Yashoda. Why? Because she endeavored to bind Krishna out of love, and Krishna reciprocated as such, and he allowed himself to be. So in the same way, Krishna, when he sees that dharma is declining and that adharma is increasing, he himself comes on something like a schedule, you could say. He himself comes once every kalpa and personally reestablishes dharma. Now, the objection might be raised. Why should he come himself? If he's so powerful, why can't he just sit up in the spiritual world and just make it happen? There's a story in this regard. There was one king, and this king had a son who was very beloved to him. He very much loved his son. Kings especially love their sons. Why? Because their sons will become their heirs. And in Vedic culture, their sons are going to be the ones offering pindas, so you have to be really, nice to your sons. So so this king, he was very affectionate toward his son. And he asked this question to one of his, pundits there. He said, why is it that Krishna comes himself? If he's so powerful, if he's the almighty supreme personality of Godhead, why can't he just snap and make it happen? Whatever it is. So one day, they were getting ready to bathe his little son. And the servant, I think they had massaged his body with oil, very opulent, nice, fragrant oil. They had massaged his body. And so he was a little bit slippery. And so the servant was there. And the baby slipped out of his hands. And it fell into the water, to the water where they were going to bathe him. And so immediately, this big, powerful king, he gets up off his throne and he goes and he's running to where this happened. And so he picks the baby up in his own arms and he's, the baby's whatever, crying and he's, cradling it. And then the pundit comes and he says, you see, you're such a powerful king. You could have sent one of your ministers, hey, go pick up my baby. But out of love, you yourself couldn't help it. You had to go yourself out of affection. So, Krishna says, as people worship me, he says, in that way I reciprocate. In that way I give back. So, the entire Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada, our Param Guru, says that the entire Bhagavad Gita was spoken to make Arjun, or to turn Arjun from a no man into a yes man. Arjun, he didn't want to follow the order of Krishna. Krishna was telling him to fight, and he was saying, I can't do it. I don't have the ability, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. And so, Krishna spoke, he sat down himself, and he spoke for around 45 minutes. It took Krishna to speak the Bhagavad Gita. So they say. And he turned Arjuna from a no man to a yes man. So similarly, we should become yes men for Krishna. And this specifically, in this chapter, is being, the point is being emphasized that becoming a yes man to Krishna means surrendering to a guru. Because all of these things are completely beyond our conception, actually. Bhagavad Gita is understood that's the kind of basics or ABCs of kind of Vedanta or Vedic philosophy. But even the topics of Bhagavad Gita for normal people are very difficult to understand. Anybody who has some kind of material desire in their head or material contamination in their head, Bhagavad Gita is very difficult to understand. The real import of Bhagavad Gita is very difficult to understand. So, Krishna is emphasizing that one should surrender unto a spiritual master. Even Lord Brahma, actually. Lord Brahma, 4 heads, his body is composed completely of intelligence. He's the most unbelievably intelligent being in the universe, unbelievably powerful. Of course, not as powerful as Krishna. And he says, Jananta eva janantu. He says, those who say, he's praying to Krishna. He's saying, this is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, Jananta eva janantu. He says, those who say, I know you, he says, let them know. Janantu, he'll just let them know. He said, but as for me, Jananta eva janantu, kimbo hukya name. I myself don't wish to speak very much about this. Kimbo hukya, why should I speak so much about this? And he says, as far as I'm concerned, Manushova Pashovacha, Tvamakinchana go, Vaibhavam Tavagochara. He says, as far as I'm concerned, all of your opulences are beyond my mind, body, and words. I can't understand it. So Lord Brahma himself is speaking like this, but then we get so many people who say, oh yes, Krishna, I know Krishna. My grandmother or my grandfather taught me about Krishna or this or that. But the unfortunate fact is that the vast majority of people in this world know nothing about Krishna. And even those who think they know about Krishna, most of the time know next to nothing about Krishna and who Krishna really is. So, therefore, one has to approach a bona fide spiritual master, bona fide meaning a spiritual master who is coming in the disciplic succession that Krishna has established. And by that, well then Krishna says, Tadvidhi, this is also in the 4th chapter, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. That by approaching, by serving, and inquiring very submissively from a spiritual master in disciplic succession, then one can know me. One can understand. Jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Because those who are tattvadarshi, those who have seen the truth, can explain the truth. So one is, Krishna is emphasizing that one should very sincerely approach a spiritual master in the disciplic succession coming from Krishna and very closely follow his instructions. And like the Upanishads say, Utishta jagrata prapi varane bodha takshurasya dhara nishita duratiya durgam padasthat kavayo vadanti. That kavis, intelligent people, they say that this path is durgam pada. It's actually a very difficult path. Kshurasya dhara nishita duratiya, because it's like a razor's edge. One has to follow very closely. One has to understand what is and what is not and act accordingly. And so the entire Bhagavad Gita was spoken so that Arjuna could see what is and what is not. And what is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is asking us, really, to surrender to him. Because this is the natural condition of the soul. The natural condition of the soul is to be a servant of Krishna, and therefore to do anything else is a recipe for dissatisfaction. It's a recipe, it's like taking a fish out of water. You take a fish out of water, and what happens? The fish suffers. And so in a similar way, when you take a spiritual being, Satchid Ananda, fully conscious, fully blissful, fully spiritual, eternal, and you put it in a vessel which is asat, achit, and nirananda, which is not blissful, which suffers. This body, factually speaking, is a place of suffering. The body suffers. The body is temporary. The body will not last forever. And the body is not, the material body is not fully cognizant. It can't understand everything. Some bodies can't understand basic things, really. But especially spiritual topics. So to take a spiritual being and put it in this unnatural condition is a recipe for suffering. So Krishna, for our benefit, out of love for us, Krishna is saying, please just give it up. Sarva dharman pratyaja mam ekam sharanam. Just give up all these unnecessary things and surrender to me. Why? Because that's who you are. Really what Krishna is asking us is to come home. That's all. To come home. And so the rules and regulations which are given in Shastra, which are given in Bhagavad Gita, which are given in Srimad Bhagavatam, the various Vedic literatures, are things that actually we would already be doing if we were liberated. For instance, things like avoiding intoxication, or avoiding, frankly, meat eating, avoiding eating meat, avoiding intoxication. All of these things are symptoms of, and this, of course, it's more of a discussion than that. But this is what Krishna says, this is what Shastra says. That these are things that would naturally be given up by people who are spiritually realized. So all Krishna is asking is to try the process of sadhana, the process of engaging in spiritual practice, is a process of getting us back to our original state. And so what Krishna is saying is that that sadhana, that spiritual practice has to be guided. It has to be guided by the rules and regulations of Shastra as explained by a guru. And that guru must be a guru in the disciplic succession of Krishna, in a line of gurus coming from Krishna, a sampradaya, which is teaching the pure teachings of Krishna. The essence of Krishna's teachings, the pure teachings of Krishna without adulterating, without changing, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. And then by doing this, then Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvadaha tato mam tattvado gyatva vishate tad anantaram. Naiti mam eti sorjana, he says. Maybe that's another verse. He says that by understanding the transcendental nature of my birth and my activities, by understanding that, then when you die, you won't take another body. You'll take a spiritual body. Why? Because if you know Krishna, you'll love him. Krishna says, he says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. That's the verse I was thinking about. He says, only by bhakti can I be known. Only by bhakti can I be approached. And so to know Krishna is to know that Krishna is the supreme lovable object. Everybody is looking for some kind of relationship. Everybody is looking for some kind of love. But on the material platform, it's misdirected. It's misdirected toward love for myself, or love for my children, or love for my family, or the different things like love for my wife. And these things are all well and good, but they have to be understood in their proper context. They have to be understood to be not the all in all. That the all in all is not to love my family. The all in all is not to love my children. The all in all is not to love my wife and this and that, or even love my people, my race, my country. The all in all is not to love these different people. Now, according to one's position, according to one's duties, one may love and serve these people, but it should be always understood in relation to their relationship with Krishna and ours. That these people are spirit souls, and I love them because they're spirit souls and because they're eternal servants of Krishna. And so, therefore, the way we love them should also be done, the way we love them should be with this in mind. That if I love such and such person, then you could say, okay, I love this person. Let's say, I love this person very much, and therefore they ask me to cook meat for them. And then so I cook meat, and then and I do it because I love them. But really, that's not love. To love somebody is to give them, of course, to care for somebody, to care for somebody's needs and things like that is also manifestations of love. But real love is on the spiritual platform, with Krishna and with Krishna's devotees. And so we should see everybody around us, our family, all these different people, we should see them as Krishna's devotees. And our love for them should be expressed in such a way that it brings everybody, all of us, closer to Krishna. Otherwise, the love is a distraction, frankly speaking. Actually, I'm not saying Krishna's saying. So, one should learn the science. Learn the science of bhakti. And it is a science. It's not just, I love Krishna and Krishna's my boyfriend or this and that. And people say, Krishna's my boyfriend. I feel like Krishna's my boyfriend. Or Krishna's my little boy or something like that. But one should understand very scientifically and understand the actual truth, the tattva. Who is Krishna? Who am I? What is my relationship? And how can I close the gap? How can I get out of this unnatural situation I'm in? And one does that by approaching somebody who knows. So all these things are very serious topics. Bhagavad Gita is a very serious book. And this process of Krishna consciousness, the process of bhakti, is a very serious process. It's a very grave thing. We're talking about our existence. So yes, bhajans are great. And bhajans are amazing. And arti and all these different things. It's all well and good. But to understand the tattva, to understand who Krishna is, then we can do all of these things with the proper mentality, with the proper consciousness, understanding that, okay, bhajan singing is nice, but it's very serious. All of these different things are very serious because right now we're in an unnatural condition of life. And if we stay in this unnatural condition of life, and if we only encourage the people around us to stay in this unnatural condition of life, then we and others will suffer, frankly speaking. That being said, Krishna says, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Pratyakshavagamam Dharmam Susukam Kartam Avyayam. Krishna says that this is the king of knowledge. It's the greatest secret. And that it is very joyfully performed. So on the one hand, it's very serious. Yes, sorry. On the one hand, it's very serious. I went a little over time. It's a very serious thing. Bhagavad Gita is very serious. And we should be very careful to follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita very carefully and understand what they are and follow them very carefully. However, we should be jolly. We should be joyful. Because our relationship with Krishna is naturally joyful. Pratyakshavagamam dharmyam means we can perceive the results of this process of bhakti ourselves. Pratyaksha, like I was saying. With our senses, we can perceive that it's real. And what is it that we perceive? We perceive that it's very joyful. So it's joyful, but it's very serious. And one should understand the tattva, understand what is not, and then be very serious. Be very serious to understand Krishna and one's relationship with Krishna. And if one does this, then one will naturally be very joyful. So, Hare Krishna. I'm sorry I went over time. We can maybe take one or two questions if there are any. Or if there are not any. If I've satisfied you, then I've done my job.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Such a nice, wonderful talk.
Hare Krishna.
And we hope to listen more from you in the future lectures, lessons. Thank you. If anybody has a question, not then, we'll have Sir Prasadam outside.
Yeah.
And then the last Aarti is darshan at 8:15 or 8:15 to 8:30. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So, Prabhu, you said that Krishna.
I don't think we did.
Actually, there's life. That's better.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, you said that Krishna is supreme. But when Krishna was present, if you see his daily activities, the morning he was doing yoga, this, that. So why don't we do the same thing what Krishna was doing daily?
Why don't we do the same things Krishna was doing? Krishna got up in the morning and he did yoga, he did this, he did that.
Someone can say,
one thing that's brought up is that when Krishna got up in the morning in Dwarka, what did he do? He sat down and he meditated on himself. So some people say, okay, then let me, when I wake up in the morning, sit down and I'll meditate on myself.
Yeah.
So one thing that should be understood is the difference between following and imitating. So this is especially brought up in relation with Shiva. Shiva is said, okay, he smokes ganja, therefore the followers of Shiva, we can smoke ganja, they say. But then, okay, Shiva also drank an ocean of poison. So then why don't you do that also? We should say. Why don't, if okay, you want to imitate Lord Shiva and smoke ganja, then why don't you also drink an ocean of poison, see if you can do that. So, people, they like to pick and choose. Like they like to, for instance, imitate the Ras Lila. That, oh, Krishna did Ras Lila, therefore let me do Ras Lila. Okay, but then lift a mountain. If Krishna is supposed to imitate, then go lift a mountain. Go kill 7 bulls in one, by yourself. Then we'll talk about Ras Lila,
Oh, recently I'm come across a person like someone giving me the thing that Krishna was also practicing Kundalini yoga, this yoga, that yoga in this Guru ashram. Then why you are not doing that? Why you are doing chanting?
Why are we doing chanting? Well, Krishna may have practiced some Kundalini yoga, fine. I don't remember anywhere in Shastra where it said that Krishna practices Kundalini yoga. You heard from, I know who you heard from. Somebody might say, Krishna was doing yoga, Krishna was doing this, Krishna was doing that. Okay, fine. But what did Krishna say? Krishna spent the whole 6th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā saying, okay, you go to the Himalayas, you sit on a deer skin, you sit on kusha grass, and you control the breath by pranayama and become a yogi. And what did Arjuna say? He said, that's impossible. And Krishna said, yes, it is. And he said, Maya saktamana partha yogam yunjan madashraya. He said, now I will teach you real yoga. And what is real yoga? Real yoga is yogam yunjan madashraya, practicing yoga by taking shelter of me. By linking your mind with me. Manmana bhava mandbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam de pradijane priyosime. Krishna says that you're my dear friend, therefore I'm telling you the most confidential knowledge. He says, Manmana bhava mandbhakto, become my devotee. Always think of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and like this you'll come to me. And then he says the best yogi is... this is in the 6th chapter. Let's see. Let's just pull it up. I think it's the last verse of the 6th chapter. Yeah, Yoginam api sarvesham. Let's read Prabhupada's translation. Anyway, too long. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatein antaratmana. Yoginam api sarvesham, the best yogi is who? He who always thinks of me within himself. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatein antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam. And he who always worships me with great faith. Sameyukta tamomataha. And then he becomes linked with me, which is the meaning of yoga. He becomes linked with me, and then no more ignorance. So this is the yoga Krishna is recommending, that what we should practice, bhakti yoga. Practically speaking, what that means, bhakti yoga. And our Acharya similarly emphasizes. Hare Krishna. Mukunda, you have a question? Okay, you can say it in my ear. What's your question? Okay, tell me later. Okay, Hare Krishna.